Welcome, everybody. So today I'm talking with Ben Preisner, who is the newest Canadian Olympic Marathon Standard recipient or qualifier, running sub 2:11:30, sub 2:11 actually, being the fifth fastest Canadian over the distance of all time at the Marathon Project in December. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about a few other things. But how's it going, Ben? Good?
It's going really well, thanks. Yeah, just been enjoying the relatively mild winter so far, which I probably just jinxed myself. But yeah, just getting back into things and taking it as it comes, I guess.
Nice. Okay, so we've got some questions from Instagram and Twitter and Strava that I'll ask you, but I'll kind of intertwine them with my own questions. So last time we spoke, you'd mentioned when you were finishing college that the priority would be for you finding a job, preferably in the field of chemical engineering. What made you change your mind? Was there a particular result or a particular moment where the switch just clicked and you're like, okay, I want to try to be a professional runner?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of it snowballed ever since I graduated, really. And I mean, to be completely honest, that was my general thought when I graduated was I wasn't sure if I was going to continue to run competitively after university, or I still am very keen to find work in the field, and because you can only run for so long, and I don't want to have whatever it is, a couple of years blank on my resume, and I want to stay fresh, and I do feel like that does help me in my running career as well, just keeping my mind on different things and just trying to continue to learn. I really do like the field of engineering. So yeah, I don't know if there was ever really a specific race in general, but it just kept snowballing. And I was still enjoying training. I still loved the grind. I joined BSEP with Coach Rich Lee, and I really like the group, and Coach is great. So it just kind of, there was no reason for me to stop. And yeah, it just always kind of snowballed, and then new goals were formed, and then that was enticing. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is attributed to a couple good results that I was proud of right after university, especially in the half marathon. That kind of pushed me towards road racing and looking at the marathon. And I just kind of had a general thought, like, if I'm going to go for the marathon, I might as well take a stab of it this year, because it's obviously an Olympic year. So there's no better time to do it. So yeah, I'm still definitely curious and looking at jobs in the field and working alongside running. So that is kind of the goal for 2021, is be able to find that proper mix where I can train at an elite level and also stimulate my brain in other ways.
If only we were in Japan. I know Japan has like professional marathon teams where they work 4 hours a day and then they train for the rest of the day. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty nice.
Okay, so changing gears a little bit, you went to Tulsa for the NCAA instead of staying in Canada. How do you think that NCAA experience benefited you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I couldn't have been happier with my choice to go to Tulsa. It's something that I do talk to some high schoolers a lot. NCAA isn't the end all be all. It's not the answer for everyone. Some people absolutely love it. Some people hate it. For me, it's just Tulsa was the right match. When I was in high school, I was looking at probably 4 or 5 different categories and trying to look at pros and cons and rank schools, my options according to those. And that was obviously academics. I wanted to find something that I was really interested in, especially in the engineering, because I knew I wanted to go somewhere in that realm. Which, there's tons of schools in Canada that are really good matches. So that, I looked at probably 4 or 5 schools in Canada, 4 or 5 schools in the States. And that kind of just whittled down. I looked at the athletics program in terms of the coaches, the current athletes, and the past success they've had. And yeah, and I mean, obviously, social life was a little bit of it too. I was kind of keen to get a little bit away from my hometown, just to experience a little bit different things. And so that, just kind of all the different aspects played well to me to look at Tulsa as a really good option. And then in terms of developing my career, I mean, that is probably one of the biggest benefits of the NCAA is just the vast competition. I mean, the depth of field there. you can go to a random invitational in the middle of whatever, Oklahoma or Arkansas, and you'll find some pretty good competition. And that is something the NCAA obviously has on top of U Sports. And athletically speaking, that is a really big benefit in my opinion. So just seeing all the work ethic that goes into the sport, that really developed my sense of what it takes to be a top athlete. Because I have had teammates at Tulsa that went on to run at the World Championships for Great Britain and stuff like that. So just seeing really world class athletes that I get to race and train with, that really developed my mindset on how I could be an elite athlete and how I need to adapt my lifestyle, training style, and all of that. So yeah, I mean, that Tulsa was definitely a really big stepping stone for me. And like I said, it's not that I couldn't have gotten here if I went to a school in Canada, and I definitely think you can. It's been proven time and time again. There's so many great athletes that come out of U Sports, but for me, it just seemed to all click, and I loved my teammates, loved my school, and I think it was really formative in terms of not only my athletics, but also my education as well.
Great. That's awesome. And I've had a bunch of people on before, like including Reed and Dana Petereski, and they've had the total opposite piece of advice. So it's good to know that for Canadian athletes out there who are much better than I am, there are different paths, right, to go.
Yeah, and awesome. I think that is important. Like, guys like Reed, for example, he had an absolutely stellar career at Guelph with the U Sports, and then obviously has been pretty dominant in the field here. But then you look at other guys like Rory Linkletter or Evan Esselink or Cam Levins. Those guys also came, Ben Flanagan, all those guys, Justin Knight. Mm-hmm. Those are pretty top guys. Cam's a little bit older than me, but all those other guys I mentioned are around my age, But then there's also guys my age that stayed in U Sports and had a really good career. You look at like the John Gays of the world, Kieran Lum, all those guys, So it's definitely, I think, the worst thing you can do for yourself as a younger athlete is pigeonhole yourself into looking at only one option or only one province, only one country or whatever it is. So I think looking at your options really allows you to open up the world and pick the right program for you and the right program for your development.
Okay, so our first question from Instagram, Gray, who I gather went to Tulsa or is a coach in the NCAA, wants to know about the Sad Boys Club.
Oh, you see, that's an interesting one. I was a pretty introverted guy in university, but I think a lot of the guys my age at the University of Tulsa had a little club called the Sad Boys Club, and I don't really know where it started, but they loved saying that, and I think it really stemmed from, this is just my opinion, from early morning practices in the cold. We were a bunch of sad boys running out there and in the dark. So I don't know. That's my take on it, but I'll let the other guys speak for themselves as well.
Okay, they can comment on Instagram or on YouTube or something if they want to change the story.
Exactly.
Okay, Stacy on Instagram asks, how has running on your own post-college compared to running with a team in college?
I mean, it's very different, that's for sure. It seems like every time you take a next step, there's less people that are going to be there, kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, at the University of Tulsa, we all lived within a 2-minute walk from each other. Basically, the entire team was in one complex of apartments. So, I could just walk outside and see all my friends and stuff like that. We could go for runs on a whim and all that stuff. So, I mean, training with the guys is a very different vibe. And, it has very good benefits. But there is a lot of benefits to training by yourself as well in terms of mental development and just learning how to listen to your body instead of just listening to a group and getting pulled along. Like I said, when I was at school, I had guys like Mark Scott that was there, who's, a world-class runner in the 10K and 5K. And in my second year, I remember getting absolutely crapped on by him. And basically every workout was me just trying to catch him. So there is a lot of benefit to that because obviously I had a big carrot to chase, but it was also sometimes I feel like pulling me out of my actual workout zone. So there are definitely benefits and consequences, but I feel like right now I've done a lot of solo training, especially due to the pandemic, but there's pros and cons to that as well. Like I said, for races such as the marathon, it's a very lonely race, especially if you're in kind of no man's land. So having that experience of doing, a 24-mile run completely by myself, I was in my head for 2 hours, 2+ hours. So having experienced that before without, always having 10 guys beside me or always having guys to push, always having guys chasing me, that is an important aspect to it. But, obviously I miss running with the guys, and I'm excited to join the guys at BCEP in Vancouver when the time allows and everything.
Awesome. Okay, so before we get to the marathon project, a lot of people think it came out of nowhere, but if anyone was following the Canadian distance scene, they would know it didn't really come out of nowhere. You had some really good results starting at the Eastside 10K and at the half marathon at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon, where you ran with the leaders through halfway, basically. So can you speak of your development since leaving college? And I know we've touched on this a little bit already, but can you give us maybe a result that gave you the confidence that you should move to the marathon?
I think the biggest thing for me was that it seemed like every time I stepped up distance, and that was in high school to university to post-collegiate, was every time I stepped up distance, I seemed to step up to that next level. And so that was always just a thing in my head that I knew that the longer distances were definitely my forte. And I didn't know when, obviously that's going to peak off somewhere. I just didn't know where it was. And so, when I moved from the steeple to the 5K, 10K kind of thing, like I didn't know, like maybe 10K was too long for me. And I had an okay time in the 10K, but nothing that was mind boggling or anything like that. So it was kind of that thing where after I graduated, I wasn't really keen on running a track 10K, and road racing seemed like a pretty fun event, and I wanted to try it out. And so there was a couple different things. I mean, for me, I was very fortunate to find some really good races. Canada Running Series definitely puts on really good options in Canada here. And my first real half marathon was the Vancouver Scotiabank half. And that was just such a great introduction. I mean, I ran with that top group there. There was probably 4 or 5 of us for 11 of the 13 miles or something like that. So it was just like a fun experience, really good introduction into the sport of road racing. And so that kind of propelled me into looking at what am I going to do for the rest of the year. And then so that just kind of snowballed, and then the Scotiabank Toronto kind of looked like the option, and I was able to run with the front pack there. And again, it was just like very good development, and always left a good taste in my mouth and wanting more, So I think I was definitely fortunate that I had positive experiences for both of those. And that really formed me into, I'm really excited about road racing. And like I said, it being the year, half marathon's not going to do much for you if you want to go to the Olympics. So the next kind of logical step was to look at the marathon. And I had a lot of faith in my training with Rich, and work has just seemed to stack on one another. And it seems like marathon training is kind of my forte, and I really enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to a lot more.
Great. We're looking forward to seeing some more results. You mentioned it a few times with Rich and the BC Endurance Project. Can you speak to why you decided to join them as opposed to joining a distance project in the States, or just finding a coach solo?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of played out. I've always kind of liked the city of Vancouver and everything. Obviously, I haven't really lived there. I've just kind of been there for races and stuff. But yeah, I was just kind of looking for different options and what coaching was. I was kind of self-coaching a little bit. And when I was in Kingston here, I worked with Steve Boyd for a little bit for like a couple months before Toronto Waterfront. And, there's a couple different options. They obviously have a really good group at BCEP. So that was a really big benefit that, if I was in Vancouver, there's a couple guys there that were training for the marathon, and they have a couple 5K, 10K guys like Luc Boucher and everything. So, and then also Rich also has a pretty good pedigree with with athletes like Rachel Cliff, for example, in marathon training. So it just seemed to kind of all click, and I really liked his philosophy and his training style, and it really clicks with what I've done in the past, especially at Tulsa. So it just kind of seemed to be a really natural fit. And I feel like that's kind of the theme of what my running career has been, is just trying to find the most natural fit. And that goes to speak with what I did in high school, right into picking University of Tulsa, and then now picking BSEP. It just kind of seemed I really wanted to play my options and figure out what's best for me. And, obviously there's a lot more money and stuff like that in some of the groups in the States, but it's also a lot more competitive. And I feel like I've really found a groove with Rich, and I really wouldn't have picked anything else right now.
Great. Okay, so before we get to the marathon project, Kevin Coffey, who's one of your teammates at BSEP, asked on Instagram, who is your pick? And I guess this is an inside joke, but I thought it was funny. Who's your pick for season 25 of The Bachelor?
I'm assuming this is the recent one.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't watch The Bachelor.
Yeah, we started watching it in Flagstaff because there was a lot of downtime when we were up there, and maybe the altitude was getting to our head. But man, it's so early in the season. I don't even know if I know their names, but Queen Victoria has to go. She needs to go right now. So she's my anti-pick. I'll say that.
Okay. All right. Back to serious stuff. Thanks for that question, Kevin. So just generally, can you walk us through your experience and your race at the Marathon Project?
Yeah, I mean, so much kudos goes out to the race organizers, Ben Rosario and the other guys that were really involved with that, because they really stepped it up for us, especially in the elite world. And the people outside of the US that are looking for Olympic qualifiers, because obviously with the world situation, there's not a lot of racing going on, and especially a lot of certified races going on. So overall experience was next to none. I mean, they dogged their I's and crossed their T's with everything. They certified the race, got it World Athletics certified, and had all the timers out there, miles marked to the seemed like centimeters. So everything was really well laid out, and I feel like they did as much as they could to also make it a safe event, because obviously that is a very key thing in the world right now. And yeah, I mean, prep went as expected. I was up in Flagstaff for about 5 or 6 weeks or so beforehand, and then went down to Phoenix the week before. And yeah, I mean, it was just amazing having 50 guys that were, I don't know what the slowest PB was, but obviously they had some debut guys like me, but it was probably sub 220. So having 50 guys that were sub 220 in one race it's almost kind of unfathomable to me. So it was just a great experience to introduce me to the event and the distance. And yeah, it was just great to be out there and run with such great guys, and also have the other 3 Canadian guys in there also with similar goals of making that Olympic team. It was a good sense of camaraderie, and yeah, I was really excited about it, and it turned out really well. And I couldn't thank them enough for putting on the event in these times.
Okay, so my next question here is, you ran 2:10:17. I forgot about it when I was introducing you. 2:10:17, and you finished 8th. So it was a pretty boring course, and as you said, it's for I imagine to run. Not that you have as much time as I do when you're running a race like that to look at the scenery. But as you're coming down that finishing straight, it looked really long on TV. Like Sarah Hall, it looked incredibly long when she was trying to come down that, searching for the American record. But what's going through your head where you see the clock and you're going to get the standard? Like what was that feeling like? And especially knowing that you passed the other Canadian guys, or they had dropped off the group, so you knew you were kind of in pole position.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of it is kind of a blur, but I remember I'm going to say probably, don't get me wrong, marathon's a very dangerous sport because things can turn on a dime really quick. So I was definitely really focused on just keeping control and keeping as composed as possible in those last few miles. But I'm going to say about 5K to go. I was confident I was going to get under Olympic standard. I didn't know how much because, like I said, you never know how much you're going to blow up. And those last 6 miles are really, really when the race starts kind of a thing. So I was confident I would get under standard, but I didn't know how far under Tristian's time or if I would get under Tristian's time. So it was really a matter of staying composed. But yeah, coming down that final stretch, like you said, it was pretty long. They had the guy that measured the course is one of the gentlemen that like measures the Olympic course and stuff. So he sent us like the distance from the corner to the finish to like the nearest 10 centimeters, something like that. I don't even remember what it was, but I'm going to say it was like 400 or so, 300 maybe. So yeah, it was a decent amount of time when you turn the corner. So I was just focusing on not falling because that would have been the absolute worst case scenario, something stupid like that. So for me, it was just a matter of keeping focused and getting to the line. And I honestly the course was interesting because they had like the roundabout turns with maybe mile or 2 miles to go before the finish. So I did kind of see where the other guys were, Rory and Cam behind me, but I couldn't really gauge how far they were. So I was just really focused on making sure they didn't catch me as well. So yeah, there were a lot of things going through my head, but definitely excited that I was able to put it together on the day and elated that I was able to put all the work together and on the day, it just all came together and proved that a lot of the sacrifice was worth it, and definitely needed to sit down after the race.
So you mentioned those roundabout turns, and I was talking to Dylan Wykes before. He's my former coach, and I was talking to Dylan Wykes, and he said, "Oh, it's going to be really fast. I think all the Canadian guys are going to get it." And then he looked at the course, and he said he saw those turns that are basically roundabout turns, as he said, and he said, "Oh, never mind. Half of them are going to be walking around those turns by the end." Did those prove as a difficulty? Because obviously you had to kill off all your momentum and get back up to speed again going around those.
Yeah,
were they not that tight?
Interesting because, like in my head, when I heard roundabout turns, I actually pictured like an actual roundabout, like one you'd see in a regular residential area, but it was more of a dead end with a little median in the middle that had like one of those turnarounds. I call it more of a turnaround. Okay. So it was a little bit tighter than I expected, but the course, the guy who measured the course did put out a little bit of a tangent to make it kind of the speed route, if you will, or if you follow that line, it's kind of the quickest route to do. That was a little bit of annoying right at the beginning of the race, especially in the bigger group, because some people take the turns differently. Some people go slower around there. Some people are more cautious. So it was a little bit annoying, but to be honest, they weren't that big. So it was a matter of, it was probably 3 seconds and you're around the corner. So it wasn't too much of a hassle, but I think more mentally than anything, it's a matter of, you get to the end, you turn around, you just got to keep going. So it's a matter of just not thinking that you're at the end of a course or something like that. Yeah, just have to just follow the turn and keep going, not lose any momentum, especially mentally. I think that was the biggest thing I tried to focus on.
Okay, Steve Ward from Milton, he pointed that out on Strava, wants to know about your strategy during the race. So he asked a bunch of questions. So what was your strategy generally? And we kind of noticed it from when we were watching the broadcast. I noticed you weren't, for most of the time, you weren't right in the middle of the pack or leading the pack like Cam was. You were kind of sitting at the back. Was there anything to that? And then he really was impressed with, as they began to accelerate, maybe I think in the second half, you let the gap go, but you didn't slow. You personally didn't slow at all. So how did you, what was your strategy going in? Was that what you intended to do? And then B, how did you let that gap go so controlled? Because I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do is let a second or two a kilometer go as opposed to let the gap really open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The plan all along was to go with that top group. The paces were going out in 209 flat, which obviously based on training and in our head, that was obviously a little bit too fast, but it was either go out in 209 flat pace or go out in 211.30 pace. So for us, it just made sense to go out with that faster group, especially I had a hunch that Cam and Rory were going to go with them anyways, and Justin as well. So it just made more sense to keep in contact with all them. And I was fairly confident that I could handle that pace for quite a long time. So yeah, going out with that front group was always the strategy. And for me, I really lucked out. I think my race tactics would have changed quite a bit if the weather wasn't as perfect as it was, because there was virtually no wind. And it was a beautiful day out and everything. So for me, like I said, sometimes in those roundabout turns and some of the corners and grabbing the bottles, the group would kind of ebb and flow, which naturally happens, obviously, when you're running in a group. I just found that really annoying personally. So that's why I just stepped off maybe 10, 20 meters off the pack. And I just wanted to run my own race. So I just didn't want to have to feel like I was going 455 flats, stuff like that. I didn't want to feel like I was yo-yoing. And so I might have been the one yo-yoing. I don't really know, but it was just for me. I would sometimes catch the back of the group and they would gap me a little bit. And it was just like, I was just going with the flow and just running my own race. Especially there was no need for me to be right shoulder to shoulder with the top Canadian guys on, mile 5, because we still have 21 miles to go, So that was kind of the way I approached it. And especially with it being my first one and doing a lot of my training solo, I didn't want to be stressed out getting my nutrition bottles and everything. Like with I think there was maybe 20 guys in that front pack for the first half of the race even. So when we're all grabbing bottles at the same time, it was a bit chaotic and stuff like that. So just being off there, having my own peace of mind and completely running my own race was a really important thing for me. And like I said, I was able to do that because there wasn't any wind penalty or anything like that on me. So that was the strategy and how I played it out tactically. And then, yeah, the last, basically I wanted to just stay within striking range of them. If something did happen, I wanted to be able to make sure I could see Cam and see Rory at the beginning. So, the gap kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit, and I was always able to see Rory and Cam. I think Rory maybe fell off the group a little bit earlier than Cam. And so it was just a matter of staying in contact. And I didn't really see Cam until maybe mile 20 or 22, something like that. So, yeah, in terms of, controlling that gap, I think it was just important for me to just run my own race. I was very confident in running, 455 to 5 flat miles for at least 20 to 22 miles. I knew in my head I could do that from previous training. So I wasn't too focused on, what place I was or how far off the group I was. And I think that was important for me, especially in my debut, to not be so stressed out about all the minute things, because it is such a long race. And I feel like you can really drain yourself mentally if you're always focusing on that. So for me, it was just a matter of always looking up and making sure I was in contact, because, running under Olympic standard was obviously the main goal. But then, if I was the third Canadian to cross the line and under Olympic standard, it doesn't really do much for me. So, obviously under Olympic standard and then within the top 2 Canadians was the A goal. And then obviously Tristian set a pretty good standard for us as well. So I guess that was kind of another A goal as well, was, optimally it would be kind of what I did was under Tristian's time and top Canadian.
So from what I gather, it was more, mostly we hear Canadians, except for the Canadian Marathon Championships, it's, Canadians are trying to work together in order to better the times. But in this situation, it was really a race within a race, like in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all had that sense of, we obviously all knew what our goals were, and everyone on that line, Justin, Rory and Cam all want to make that team, and there's only 2 spots left, and Tristian set a pretty good bar for us. So, you know, I might be, no, I don't want to speak for them obviously, but I'm almost certain everyone had that same process of thought where, you know, we all, obviously there's a pretty hard set time of 2:11:30 by the Olympic committee. So that was obviously the A goal, and then there's only 2 spots left. So I think it was really good that we were able to key off each other, and it was great being able to see familiar faces in the race. And you know, I was totally rooting for them. I wanted those guys to run fast. Elevating the marathon scene in Canada only helps for all of us. So you know, they've got a couple months here that I don't doubt for 1 second that those guys are going to pop off. And there's some other guys too that are definitely looking to run fast. And you know, like I said, I want to maintain my spot as much as I can, but you know, elevating the marathon scene in Canada only helps all of us. So I'm rooting for all of them.
What's the best piece of advice that you've received from a fellow Canadian marathon or coach? Like going into the race, what was the best piece of advice? Or the one that stuck in your head the most?
Yeah, a lot of my cues came from my coach, Rich. He's got a lot of experience with the marathon and coaching and also racing himself. And so, you know, he sent out an email to me, just kind of detailing different checkpoints within the race, different mile markers, and how I should be feeling. And if I'm not feeling this way, then what my mental process should be to deal with that, or how I adjust my goals, how I adjust my paces. So there's, you know, you can go forever with different scenarios. So I'm not saying we tackled every single scenario or anything like that, but it was more of how to deal with that mentally and take it and trust the training and trust your body. Because one of the biggest things he said to me was, you know, if I adjust my pace halfway through the race, for example, that does not mean that I'm giving up on my Olympic dreams, you know? So for him, it was more just being rational and understanding that taking a step back for 5K in the middle of the race just means that you're not going to blow up at the end of the race, you know? So it's like almost understanding that preemptively stepping back a little bit will allow you to save seconds, if not minutes, off the back end of the race. So it is a really interesting mindset in the marathon of it's a really long-term approach. And that is very different than, you know, what you do for a track race in university or something like that, where it's, you know, if you only race in a 5K, you're racing less than 15 minutes or whatever. You don't have to think so much about that. Or if you do think about that, usually it's almost too little, too late kind of a thing. So it is a very different mindset that I obviously want to develop as I continue with my marathon career.
Great. Okay, so just a couple more questions on the marathon project. What was it like to race during COVID? For me, I watch TV nowadays and I see a big group of people and I go, oh no, none of them were wearing masks. And so you were in this group, and obviously everyone's been tested, and I probably would feel safe in that environment as well. But what was that experience like? Obviously, you probably haven't raced in a while. So was there almost a certain air about the race where this is our only shot, or was there, or did you have a mindset going in like, oh, this could be risky?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's risky. There's an inherent risk of doing anything in a group right now. I think that within the race, they followed the guidelines that the USATF released according to the CDC guidelines and all that stuff. So, you know, we had to get tested multiple times during the week and make sure we self-reported during on race day and the week beforehand. So there's a lot of different protocols and stuff, and also we're all wearing masks if we were inside and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you know, there's obviously inherent risk, and it's not like, you know, we were all shoulder to shoulder in a big pack, and yeah, we were outside, but obviously that's a pretty risky endeavor. But for me, it was just a matter of limiting as much of it as I can. And then, you know, I was just trying to be responsible, but also take advantage of the situation. So, yeah, it's an interesting aspect, because obviously going into the race, who knows when the next marathon is. I really feel for some of the guys that are looking for more races, and, you know, we're keeping our options open and in terms of what's next, but it definitely helps me mentally to know that I don't have to run another marathon if I can't find one, or can't get in one, or I think it's too risky to travel or anything like that. So there's a lot of relief that comes with hitting it on the head when it counted, kind of thing. So I tried not to focus on that, because that does add a lot of pressure to the race. But definitely afterwards, it was a big elation that, you know, the risk that I took going to the States and training in the States and all that kind of thing played dividends, and I was able to capitalize on it when it was available to me.
Great. Okay, so we have a couple questions on Instagram about your training and race experience. So Austin wants to know how you fought against chafing.
Oh,
do you have any tips?
I used a hefty amount of petroleum jelly. I was getting a lot of issues. One of my workouts, I've worn my flats for several months, but for some reason, one workout was probably just the dryness in Arizona. It ripped up my heel a little bit. So I had quite a bit of a blister on my Achilles on my heel. And I found that if I just lathered Vaseline on my heel before I put my socks on, it really helped. So I heavily Vaselined my heels and armpits and anywhere that would be rubbing. Yeah. So that was my biggest thing. I don't know if I needed it, but I definitely used it as a little bit of a safety barrier, I guess.
I remember my first marathon. I had no idea what I was doing. Anyway, I got to the line, didn't put on anything, and I was walking around like this for the next 3 days because I didn't want to touch anything. Anyway, I use Body Glide, Austin. It's also very good, but it's more expensive than Vaseline. So
I just had I lucked out. I had a little travel one. It fits in the bag. It's not conspicuous. It's just out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So it is what it is.
Okay, Nathan on Strava wants to know what marginal gains initiatives that you have done, that you did going into it, or that you want to do now after a marathon. So he gave a few examples, such as altitude tents, frequent massage, sports science fueling, etc.
Yeah, you know, there's so many different aspects in running that you can better yourself in. It's kind of that. I kind of take an approach of that, you know, that 10% rule, or if you look at every single aspect in running and you can get better at it only 10% in each aspect, that's going to compound and exponentially make you better. You know, you don't have to nail it every single time. And I think running is a very big learning process. But for me, yeah, I was able to take advantage of altitude because the race was in Phoenix. So I was just up in Flagstaff for 5 weeks, and I took advantage of that, and I feel like that does help. I've only done, I did 1.5 marathon builds, I guess, because I did a build before London before it got canceled, and that was also in Flagstaff. So my only 2 data points right now for marathon builds are really at altitude. Although I guess half or so of the build for the marathon project was done here locally in Ontario. So I really do like altitude. I've never tried an altitude tent or anything like that, just the real deal kind of stuff. But obviously that comes with a price and very location specific. So that's a tough one. But yeah, in terms of other marginal stuff, I feel like for me, consistency in training is a really big thing. And that comes with so many different things. That comes with, injury prevention, because missing a workout here and there isn't the end of the world, but it's the consistency aspect of it that I really find important. So injury prevention is a really big thing. And that, again, that spirals out in terms of whether you're using, just a personal foam roller or stretching, or you're using an RMT or Chiro, whatever it is. So I try and use a little bit of everything and a little bit in moderation of everything. And that is kind of my motto, is just, everything in moderation and trying to just get better in every aspect a little bit. And I feel like if you do that, you're always going to hit that next level and look for different ways to learn and develop your body. So that is the approach that I take in life and also in running.
Okay, a couple more social media questions. Karen wants to know, so just for some context, Ben ran at what? You ran 2:15 on a Kingston bike path or something in the fall, which is just craziness. Anyway, so there's lots of people doing virtual marathons. As you know, Ottawa's already announced most likely that they're going to be virtual for the spring. Do you have any tips for people who are doing, since you ran 2:15 for virtual marathon, they want to know if you have tips for that?
I think I spent a lot of time focusing on finding the right course for myself, especially because I knew that I wanted to at least have water every 5K or so. So that kind of narrows it down. If you're going to do a really big loop, you're either going to have to drop bottles somewhere, or you're going to have to, have someone bike beside you or drive a car beside you, whatever it is. So for me, that's why I chose the bike path personally. It was a very flat trail. I was able to drop bottles every 5K, and also my girlfriend rode her bike beside me, so she's the real MVP for that one. But yeah, so I think obviously when you sign up for a marathon, the course and all the water station and all that stuff is already taken cared for you. So that is something you have to do for yourself. And I think strategically planning that kind of stuff really pays dividends in the end. So yeah, a lot of my focus, especially the few weeks before, was finding the right course, figure out what I'm going to do in terms of taking in water, taking in carbs, all that kind of stuff. That is one big aspect of it, because obviously you have to do it all yourself. And then second thing is, obviously, if you're doing it by yourself, a lot of it is going to be a lot of mental prep. And the marathon definitely is a very daunting task if you're just going to step out the door and say, I'm going to run 26 miles today or whatever it is, 42K. So I feel like a lot of that was mental prep going in, the last kind of 3 or 4 weeks. I was really focused on envisioning myself running, up and down a trail, 5K up and down a trail for just over 2 hours. So that was it is a very daunting task mentally. And I think preparation is a really big key. Not only preparing your body athletically, but also mentally is a really big, important factor.
All right. Another question from social media. I told you we had a bunch. Rob wants to know why you run so many grass loops.
It's just something I really enjoy. I've got the mindset that I can just kind of clue off, and I really like running loops. Honestly, the University of Tulsa really spoiled me a little bit, because they like to perfectly manicure their lawn. So we didn't have any turf or anything like that, but it was just, a lot of the lawns were very perfectly manicured. They cut them regularly, and they were nice, like fine, soft grass. So I was really spoiled there. We used to do a lot of our easy runs, just step out the apartment and go hit some of the loops on the campus. But yeah, I really like running on turf, and I just kind of enjoy it. I find it almost calming that I know, I've got a turf field that's a mile from my house here, and I can just run there. I know, okay, I've got 20 loops around this turf, and then I can run back. And then it's just in my head, I can count it down. It's very calming for me. So it's not for everyone, that's for sure. But also physiologically, I think it is important to hit different types of terrain. Kind of what I mentioned earlier, everything in moderation. I try and hit certain percent on asphalt, certain percent on grass kind of terrain, and then also gravel is also really good for your body too. So I think mixing it up within the week, or even within a certain run or whatever, is important for muscle development and also avoiding injury.
Great. Okay, 4 more questions, and these are all forward-looking ones, and then we'll finish with some rapid fires. So When we chatted a few years ago, you mentioned to me, and this is a quote, making the Olympics would be amazing, and if the opportunity presented itself, I obviously wouldn't be opposed to it. So now that you have that opportunity, like what's kind of going through your head for the future? Like, is there, and you've mentioned this a little bit, you don't necessarily have to race moving forward. What does it mean to be an Olympic qualifier, I guess, is the first question. And then the second question is what's your next step?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely really excited and honored to be able to put my name in the hat with all these great runners. Not only right now with all the guys that are currently running, but also in the past that have really set the bar for Canadian marathoning. So being able to be in that group of people is really an honor, and I'm definitely excited to continue to develop and see what I have in the marathon. And yeah, I mean, 2021 is such an unknown thing. Like you mentioned, almost all the events so far, especially in Canada and likely in North America, are going virtual. So if you're not able to find a marathon, which is going to be pretty tough for me right now, then I don't know what's going to be the thing. So we're kind of playing it off. We're going to, there's not going to be any races in Canada until April, until the weather kind of subsides. Maybe out west there might be one tiny bit earlier, but that's still kind of cold out there. So and it rains a lot. So and it's a pandemic, so you got kind of all that thing. So obviously in Canada you're going to have to wait until late spring to be able to actually find a race if there's going to be one. So for me, we're just going to keep our options open, build a good base, and be ready if I do need to try and run another one and maintain my spot. But right now the main focus is maintaining my spot for the Olympic team, and that kind of goes with what it is. If I don't have to run another one, I likely won't before the qualification window ends. But nothing's off the table right now. It really depends on how things progress in the country and worldwide here.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Peter on Strava wants to know, what is your, if presuming you make the team, which isn't a done deal yet, but just for people who don't know, there are 2 spots left for the Canadian Olympic team. You need to have run under 2:11:30, and it's up to a selection committee. Presumably Athletics Canada, and I'll get your opinion on this, they're going to choose the 2 fastest times running within the qualifying window, but you really never know. At least we're not Athletics Kenya, who will just kind of pick at random. So A, can you confirm whether that's kind of how they're leaning? And then B, they want to know, assuming you make the team and barring injury, what is your goal? What's your Olympic goal?
Yeah. So to speak on selection, I mean, I haven't spoken to anyone on the committee or high up in Athletics Canada, but they released their document on how they're going to go about selection and the different categories that they take into consideration when making the selections. It does seem like it's very heavily weighted on time, especially because the marathon's not like the track where you can compare courses and stuff like that, where it's very different. And it's a very different kind of racing. You can't compare weather and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like a lot of it will go off time. The men's team is a little bit different than the women's team, for example, where they have some people like Lindsay Tessier, for example, who qualified through her placing at the World Championships. So that's a little bit more in the gray area, whether they like to look at placing at big events or whether they look at time. But for the guys right now, because there really aren't any gold label races or major marathons that are going to be going off right now. So realistically, what they have to go on is they have times that people run, and then also head-to-heads are the 2 that really stand out to me. But yeah, I mean, they obviously have the potential to look at other things as well that they listed out there. And yeah, goals for the Olympics is, I haven't really thought that far, mainly because it's definitely not a done deal, and I like to keep my eye on the ball here for a little bit. But yeah, it'll be interesting to look at different aspects. There's definitely different benchmarks that I can base off of past guys like Reed and Eric and Dylan and all those guys. So looking at what they've been able to accomplish and kind of basing my goals off past Canadians and other athletes that are in my realm will definitely be somewhere a stepping stone. You know, obviously I'm not going to say, you know, I can go run, get 10th to the Olympics because Eric did it. You know, obviously that's not the proper way of thinking about it. Everyone runs a different kind of race. So there will be some definitely goal setting, I think in June, hopefully, knock on wood. And it'll be an interesting process to see where I think I can place myself in the top runners there.
Yeah, on goal setting, I had Jared Ward on after the Olympic trials, and he said something really interesting. It's like even 2 weeks before the Olympics, he had no idea what his goal was going to be. And then his coach, he was always, because people kept asking him, and especially more so in the States than here, if you don't say you're aiming for the podium, you're like frowned upon as a defeatist. But anyway, right. So and let's be honest, the marathon is probably one of the hardest events for Canadian. Like it's a tough event to make the podium.
It's a very dominated sport by certain people, for sure.
Yes, exactly. And like Kipchoge's in the event, so based on past precedent, like he's probably going to take one of the top 3 spots. But anyway, he said that his coach said, "Oh, I think he can finish top 10." And it was only like 1 or 2 weeks before the Olympics where like he actually was able to set a goal. So I don't know if that helps you or hinders you or not, but anyway, that's what Jared told me.
Definitely.
So our last question, then we'll go to rapid fire, is Sam on Instagram wants to know when you're going to break the Canadian marathon record.
I mean, I have to run another marathon or find another marathon to even fathom that. But I mean, you know, that's a big step. I mean, that's another minute or so off my time. So, you know, I'm confident that I can run faster, and I'm confident I can develop as a marathon runner. But I think it's going to have to obviously be done stepwise. And I don't know if I can go into my second marathon expecting a full minute off my time or anything like that. So, you know, Cam's obviously a really great athlete. He set that. And to speak to that, honestly, like Cam setting that stone for us and really hitting that low 209s, I think that really opened our minds to say, you know, Canadians can run 209. Canadians can push that 208 barrier and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of us owe a lot to him for kind of pushing that barrier and opening our minds into what we can accomplish. And so, yeah, I mean, it's no simple feat to run what Cam did. And I don't want to err on the side of arrogance or anything like that to say I could do it anytime soon or even accomplish it in my lifetime. So I think it'll be a matter of taking it as it comes and training hard. And if it happens that I'm fit enough to go for it, then I'll take it as it comes for sure.
Great. Well, we'd like to see you give it a run in Toronto. Maybe obviously it depends on the Olympics, but Toronto is hopefully going to go ahead. And there's some extra prize money there too, if I am not mistaken. All right. Anyway, let's do some rapid fires. I sent you this list before. I've added a couple.
Okay.
So what's your most memorable race?
My most memorable race, I'd say, is probably one of the conference championships with the guys at the University of Tulsa. Just we were fortunate to be pretty high up there in the conference cross country championships and stuff. And I feel like that team aspect is something that people don't normally realize about running, especially in university, as it is very team oriented, especially with my experience in the States. A lot of it was focused on, you know, getting that team to nationals, getting that team the conference championship. So I absolutely loved racing for the team. And, you know, we're obviously all tired out there trying to double on races and some guys did the distance medley relays and all that stuff. And it's just great to all pull together and be able to try and accomplish a common goal. And, you know, that kind of goes back to Stacy's question there about running with the guys in university. It's just such a great vibe to be able to all, you know, be really good friends, be really good teammates and learn off each other and be able to develop with each other as we grow throughout university.
On the other end, what's the race you'd most like to forget?
Yeah, my answer is honestly pretty similar. The one that always sticks in my head is regionals in my 4th year of university, we missed nationals by 1 spot, and we didn't have enough points to make it on the point system. So our season just ended abruptly, and it was honestly very tragic. And that was probably left the biggest pit in my stomach for, I mean, even in my 5th year, I was like, man, I wish I redshirted that year now just so I could run again. And so, yeah, that was a tough way to end my university cross country career, but luckily I still had some track eligibility to make it up for it.
Well, I know how you feel. So you and I ran against each other in high school. Against is a bit of a misnomer, but anyway, we finished 3rd and your team finished 2nd to qualify for OFSA one year, and we didn't qualify. It was like 8 points or something. Anyway, 8 points is a lot, but still, it's not comparable at all, but it stung.
No, for sure. I feel you. It's a tough one. It's really tough to just feel, obviously all season we're thinking about NCAAs and we're going to go to nationals and all that. And then all of a sudden it just ended and we drove 5 hours home in a silent car and we're all just pissed, So yeah, that was a rough week.
All right. Who is your Canadian, or just generally, running like hero or mentor or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I can single just one person. I've had so many people that have been really important in my development as an athlete. I mentioned some of my teammates like Mark Scott, and we had Chris O'Hare there for a little bit in my last couple of years. So guys like that really showed me what it takes to be an elite athlete and what I need to do in terms of training and recovery and social life, and not taking the sport absolutely seriously every single time. So those guys are really formative in my careers, and not just the top athletes. There's lots of guys that were the grinder types in university that really showed me work ethic and all that kind of stuff. So the university guys, that's definitely one pool. But then, there's lots of guys in the Canadian scene, guys like Reed Coolsat, that I've spoken to quite a bit, and he's given me a lot of advice, and even just looking at his Strava and all that kind of stuff, different training styles and different ways he adapts through injuries and all that kind of stuff. And not to mention, he's been kind of the face of Canadian marathoning for so long and all that kind of stuff. So he's been really formative in inspiring me to try out the marathons, try out road racing. And, there's so many others that, have been really important in my career development and athlete development.
What's your favorite pair of shoes?
That's a tough one. I go back and forth on different brands, but I like to have a heavier kind of cushiony kind of shoe and then more of a relaxed kind of shoe. So I like using the Nike Pegasus a lot, and then also Adidas Ultra Boost are a good one too. So I cycle through shoes like that some of them are a little cushionier, some of them are a little faster.
What's your go-to pre-race meal?
I try to stay away from.
Sorry, go ahead.
I try and stay away from traditions just so that I don't pigeonhole myself. Any kind of basic pasta, chicken, whatever it is, rice. Just I don't. The traditions in my head. If I go to a race and I need spaghetti and meatballs and I can't find a restaurant that'll give me a good set of spaghetti and meatballs, I feel like I'll mentally start to freak out. So I try and stay away from that. Just go with the flow, whatever I can get that won't mess with my stomach the next day.
That's some very good advice. All right. If you could do another Olympic sport, what would it be? I think you're going to say hockey, but.
I mean, I'd love to. I'd love to play hockey. That obviously didn't work out. I played hockey since probably grade 1 through grade 11, or if not more than that. So, yeah, hockey's always got a really good place in my heart. And I mean, that's a tough sport to make. Obviously, running's a tough sport to make too. But I don't think I had the body type to keep going in hockey.
Which NHL team do you cheer for? If
I
you
mean,
say
you know,
if you don't say the Leafs, I'm going to turn it off right now. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say, you know, you got to cheer for the home team. I love the Leafs. If they're on, you know, obviously I'll watch and cheer for them. But I like kind of watching the other teams too. I've always been a fan of the Rangers, and um, yeah, there's a couple of teams. I just like watching hockey. And, you know, if the Leafs are on, I'll cheer for them. That's for sure.
Great. All right, you're allowed to stay. What's your favorite running route? Can be anywhere.
I really like my trails back home in Milton. Hilton Falls was very formative. I loved running there. I in high school probably ran there 5 out of the 7 days of the week, kind of thing. So I love going back there and running through the trails. I think I know all the trails by heart now. So that's one of my favorite places. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot better than Kelso too, because you don't have to go up the giant ski hill. Okay. Yeah. Favorite workout?
If I'm training for small, like shorter races, like 5K, 10K, even half marathon kind of stuff, I'd say kilometer repeats. I'm a big fan of, off like a minute or something like that on the track. I really like that kind of workout, somewhere in the 8 to 12 rep range. That's always a good fitness tester, good way to mentally get through a workout. And I really like that workout. But I also really like long tempos, like a good 10 or 15 mile tempo. I've really started to enjoy that in my marathon years. And we did a lot of those in Tulsa too. So yeah, I'd say either track workout is kilometer repeats, and then road running or tempo workout is just a long 10, 12, 15 mile tempo.
All right. Last question. What's your bucket list race?
That's tough. I mean, I would have loved to run London, any one of those major marathons, and, you know, like London, Berlin, Boston, all those. Obviously, that would be really cool. You know, there's so many different ones. Like the Barkley Marathon would be really fun. I mean, I think I would be terrible at it, but who knows? You know, I don't know what's in store for me after I stop road racing or anything like that. But the other one I've watched, for some reason, it started popping up on my YouTube channel. I've gone into the whole of it, is like Ironman racing. I feel like that would be unreal too. I really need to start to learn how I can swim, but not like them. So that's a very far in the future kind of a thing, but that would be really cool as well.
I can see you versus Mike Woods now. That's where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I've got Instagram and Strava are my two main ones, and Facebook as well. So I don't have a Twitter or anything like that, but yeah, Instagram and Strava are the ones I'm on the most.
Great. I will throw when I post this on YouTube, I will throw your details down in the comments. Anyway, awesome. Thanks so much for doing this. This was great.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to catch up.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. Please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, and sharing with your friends and on social media. Take care, and we'll see you next time.